Blog Talk Radio.
It's the Jenny Hatch Show at Blogging Mothers Magazine, and this is Jenny speaking. I'd like to take the time today to share with you my mothering journey. I call this my journey to family freedom. And I thought I'd just give you a very quick overview of my life and how I came to a place where I felt more free and sovereign in my day-to-day living. I grew up as a child who was extremely ill. All throughout my childhood and teens, I was plagued with allergies, asthma, skin problems, and a variety of emotional diseases that, back in the 70s and 80s, they really weren't diagnosing and treating these things. But I had a lot of symptoms of emotional illness during my teens. Went through a suicidal depression when I was 15 that I really didn't tell hardly anybody about, and was always kind of befuddled by these symptoms that I had. I was also really into musical theater, and when I wasn't sick, I was in shows, and so I performed 3 or 4 shows a year with various groups at church and in the community, and especially at my school. And when I left home and went to BYU in 1986, immersed myself in musical theater for about 2 years. And during that time, I was greatly aided in my health by eating a whole foods vegetarian diet, exercising diligently, and just really focusing on exercise. But when I married in 1988, although I had what would probably be considered a healthy pregnancy in an 8-pound baby girl born naturally in a hospital, I was plagued with asthma, skin problems, horrifying allergies. I had a root canal during that pregnancy. I was showing major signs of nutritional deficiency, and I really didn't know how to help myself much beyond just taking my prenatal vitamins and trying to eat as healthy as I knew how at the time. After my daughter was born, we moved to Ohio, and while we were living there, I experienced a nervous breakdown. And it was in the throes of postpartum psychosis that I literally hit bottom with my health, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, because I believe those are all connected. And it was during this time when I was just a young 21-year-old mother that I found myself pleading with heaven. Please, Father, tell me there is another path than the path that I am on with these psychiatrists and all their medications. And really the death sentence they were diagnosing me with, which was manic depression. Some of the psychiatrists I worked with told me I probably shouldn't have any more children because of the psychotic episode I had when she was 3 months old. Some of them were really judgmental and negative, and the things that they said to me broke my heart, because in reality what they were telling me was, you just don't have what it takes to be a mother. And for me, I was someone who had wanted to be a mother since I was a child. I had planned to have a huge family, and to have this death sentence, I call it, at the very beginning of my mothering was so difficult. And after about a year of being on all of their medications, including a second hospitalization for suicidal overwhelm, which I now believe is probably caused by the fact that they put me on Prozac, a very high dose of Prozac, I found a female psychiatrist who helped me to wean off of all the medications I was on. And we gradually took each drug out of my daily diet, and I went from taking lithium, stelazine, Prozac. Early on, I was given doses of Haldol, to weaning down to just taking like 1 Prozac pill a day. And when I finally came off that last med, the Prozac, I experienced a mania for a couple of days that really freaked me out and freaked my husband out, but I now know that that was just a typical drug withdrawal mania, and I was able to work through it. And for a long, long time, I mean like 20 years, I didn't take any psychiatric meds. And during that time, I was able to give birth to 4 more children, and I did it by basically running away from the medical profession. During that time of coming off my meds, I got on my knees and I said, Father, I'm either going to die or I'm going to get well. I know that you know the answers for how to be well, and I want you to show me how to be well. And he did. He told me I needed to take the Word of Wisdom diet extremely seriously and not just focus on the don'ts, but especially focus on the do's of eating a whole grain diet and lots of fresh fruits and vegetables in their season, using herbs with knowledge and wisdom. And that's what I did. And I don't claim to be mentally well. I probably will always struggle with some symptoms of mental illness because of certain traumas I've experienced, especially during my childhood. But I have learned how to deal with my emotional problems without medication. And my testimony to any of you who are listening to this is that this is possible. You can do this. You don't have to be a medical slave. And so this is what I call family freedom, not being tied to a system where you have to take their extremely overpriced drugs in order to function in your day-to-day life as a mother. You don't. I was able to make it through to a second, or I guess it would have been a third hospitalization about 12 years ago. I had a breakdown after my brother's death. I was rehospitalized for 3 days with suicidal overwhelm, but I was able to make it through that incident without using any medications. And then I had a fourth hospitalization about 2 years ago when I had another bout of suicidal depression. And during that incident, I did take a few medications in the hospital just to keep the peace with the nurses and the doctors. But as soon as I was released after 12 days of hospitalization, I flushed them all down the toilet and told my psychiatrist I was not going to take any more psychiatric meds. So, and he was surprisingly supportive of that. He said, it's your body, you know what you need, and I appreciated that kind of casual attitude compared to the psychiatrist I had during my first incident when they court ordered me to eat psychiatric meds. So, this is my story. There's true healing and health to be found in the foods that come of the earth, that are not manufactured in a lab or by scientists. These substances that we put into our bodies were meant to nourish us physically, but they were also designed to nourish our minds and our mental processes. And once I figured out that there was a way for me to nourish my brain with vitamins, minerals, herbs, whole foods, that was my ticket to freedom. And I want to testify to, especially you young moms out there who are being told that you're going to have to take psychiatric meds for the rest of your life, that you can do this. You do not have to be a medical slave to the psychiatric system. And it was my prayer that in sharing my story, and I'd encourage you to go to my website, jennyhatch.com, read my first book, A Mother's Journey, in which I outline all the details of the things that I did to help myself during those early years when my children were babies and I was sleep deprived and struggling physically with the demands of motherhood. Just read about how I was able to overcome so many roadblocks that seemed to constantly be before me in my journey to freedom. Thanks for tuning in today. This is Jenny Hatch, and I look forward to having you back to hear one of my podcasts in the future. Thanks for tuning in.